creating presence. And today I have very intrepid Wendy Nash with me. Wendy, what's going on?
Well, hello, greetings from Gubby Gubby country in Queensland in Caboolture in Australia. Queensland is the skin cancer capital of the world, and I am not immune. So it's been an interesting journey. Today, I think we're going to talk about trust. So I thought that was very interesting. So I was at the doctor this morning. We had to shift a couple of hours later because of my doctor's appointment. And basically, I thought about trust quite a bit because actually I've got this. Well, I went, and so I'm sort of trusting the doctor in June. I have to get skin cancer checked every day, every year, um, and I went to the doctor because I trust that he's going to do a good job. Because I went to another doctor, skin doctor clinic, and I just felt that he was it was a free service, but he was terrible. He didn't seem interested. So I thought trust is actually having an interest in the other person's well-being. Like it already starts to build from there. So I went in June, and then he said, "There's something here. It's probably nothing, but if you start to feel a bit uncomfortable, just come back and we'll shave it." So I went, yeah, no, I want it out. So he shaved it, and it never really healed. And I thought it was just a pimple or, like something. And then I was at the GP's a couple of weeks ago and at the doctor, and she said, "I think that's a skin cancer." So I was going, oh. So I went up to the hospital because I couldn't get an appointment in time. And I just went, they've got a really good clinic up the road and public hospital. And she said, no, that's a skin cancer. So I'm going, okay. So I went in and they said, yep, look, it's probably nothing. It's probably just a biopsy, and that's fine. And then they got the biopsy back and they went, no, that's a skin cancer. And so so I've had a couple of procedures since we last met. And so he had to take out, I hope you're not squeamish. So he had to take out quite a kind of, he was drawing it with his marker, quite a size and a bit of a line. And then and so he sewed it up, and it's actually just here, but
Mhm.
the stitches go all the way down to here, which I'm a bit weird about.
Wow.
So last Wednesday, that was Wednesday last week, he put the stitches in and everything. And I was a bit, oh, look, I'm pleased to have it up, but, and I have to trust that he's kind of got it all, and I have to trust that he's going to give me a look at the end because this is my face. I'm not a particularly vain person, but nonetheless, I don't want to look like a pirate for the rest of my life. And so I've got this, so it's this line. I'm going, oh, is this going to be like a permanent line in the middle of my face? And I think probably the answer is yes. But on Thursday, I was talking with my computer guy, and I said, oh, look, I haven't seen you in ages. Can you fix up just this thing because it's actually super urgent? And he said, look, I've just been diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to have to find somebody else about that. So this idea of trust. And so this morning I went to the skin doctor and he took out the stitches, and it actually really hurt because of the way the stitches, and I won't go off who are squeamish. And it was just, it did hurt a little bit, but it's done. And he said, basically, if it had grown any more, he would actually have been a real problem because it would have been too close up to the eye. They wouldn't have had enough skin for the stitches. So he said, I got everything. So clinically, you're safe. I got everything. But histologically, it wasn't kind of that edge. And so that sense of creep out, this Queensland,
Mhm.
I was on the way back and, skin cancers. And I've been hearing skin cancer stories all week because I've had these stitches on my face and a bandage. It's like, and I've also had, networking events and stuff. And so there is so much trust. I have to trust that he's going to do clean stitches. I have to trust that he is skillful in his knowledge. I have to trust that he is diligent and competent. And I have to trust that today's medical capacities actually are going to be good enough. So normally they say come back in a year, and this morning he said see you in 6 months. I'm like, okay. So there's it's one thing to go, yeah, I mean, I don't really want to have a big line in the middle of my face, but I sort of want skin cancer less. You've got to make the decision that is the least bad often. And so I'm going, okay, well, that's that. And it's not stage 4 esophageal cancer. So trust. I said I would tell you about it when I saw you.
Yes,
And you're like,
yes.
oh, yeah, something happened to you. So that's what happened to me.
Well,
Josh is just hearing this for the first time, boys and girls.
that's right. This is where the rubber meets the road with practice. And for those of you who are not seeing this and just listening to the audio, Wendy has a bandage near the top of her left eye. I can't tell with the mirroring, left or right eye. I don't
Right.
know. Right eye.
It's
Okay.
actually the top of the right eye. So,
Okay. And then
if you think about when you're wearing glasses and you've got
the bridge
the
that,
little
that
foot of the
yes.
glasses
Yeah.
that sits where the
You,
frames are. So it sort of
mhm.
is there. It's where the actual skin cancer is.
I
And
see.
then the stitches go down across the cheek. So if you go directly under the eye, probably about 3 centimeters, so it's 10 stitches down the face. So
Wow.
apologies for those who are squeamish, but
It's
you know,
okay.
it's
You know. Yeah, I mean, well,
it's
you're going through it. I mean, yeah, it's one thing to be squeamish. It's another thing to actually have to do this. So yeah, yeah, and so trust. Yeah, we're just in a minute here yeah, and I never really, I guess, framed it in the way you did, which is a great way to do it. Is that you have kind of this feeling that someone cares, right? Is that how you framed it? Do it more explicitly again, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it is. You
it's
you you have to be trust is does have an element that the other person cares about me. Actually, that I've been actually looking a lot who's just published a book, and he said that mattering, so not resilience, not self-esteem, but mattering is what kind of is the core of relationships. So does my well-being matter to my doctor? That's the foundation of trust. So do you matter and do I matter? Do each other matter? This is the foundation of trust, I think. What do you
it's
think?
really interesting to contemplate it this way. I guess I come at trust a different way. I think of something else a lot. I think of is this person trustworthy? Are they full of BS? Are they trying to deceive me? Or can I are they responsible enough to do what needs to be done? So it's really interesting, and I don't think that's an invalid, but I think yours goes way more to the core of the issue. You know what I mean? And I think it seems like there's an element of letting go of control too, because at a certain point when we choose whether we're going to give trust or not, then at a certain point, yeah, because I think why do we need to trust someone or not? Because there's an element we feel we can't control. I think is one of the things, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's that. This and controls a whole nother topic, but that's another thing that comes up when I think about trust. And then we hear about earning someone's trust, right? And people who kind of misabuse trust. There's so many elements. I'll just throw another one into the pot of soup here. Is honesty, right? So if someone is not consistently honest with me, then I really do, they have to really then earn my trust, because if someone's not being honest and straightforward, or deliberately so, then how can I really trust that person? And well, I take that back. There's one other thing here. We talk about people that just kind of some people just seem to be more trustworthy automatically, and other people are really suspicious, and somebody really has to earn their trust. So that's another element. So plenty of stuff here, I think. Yeah.
So, all right. So we're Q&A meditation. So
Yeah, that's another thing.
let's look at that. So, my sense of what you're saying is that what you're asking yourself, whether that person is trustworthy, whether they are honest, whether they at at the foundation, there's something about how will they treat me, and that's your question, I think. And so
Yes.
does my humanity, my need, my experience, my skin, my care, my health matter to the other person enough that they will be honest, straightforward, um, say what needs to be said. So mattering isn't just about saying, yeah, 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 everything's fine. Mattering means saying, actually, you have a problem here. So in relationships as well, like this is a boundary, and boundaries are saying, you matter to me enough that I need to say this is how this relationship needs to be conducted. And that can
Yeah,
be
these
um, a customer business one where you need to pay your invoice in time, or I'm actually going to cease trading, or like if you're co-founders or something, how do you build that? Yeah, so that's where that was. But in terms of meditation, I think that trust. So I tested the Dharma a long time with a lot of practice, and I did it, as one of my teachers said, uh, Wendy is a testament to practice, because I was so angry and everything, really horrible a lot of the time. A 5-letter word starting with B was not an uncommon term that people used about me. But I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I applied it and I applied it and applied it. And so the end result was that I tested the theory that the Buddha said, this is what's going to work. And I went, okay, give it a go. And does it work? Yes. In a way, the Dharma, I tested the Dharma to see if it worked.
field tested,
And I
kick the
did it.
tires. Yes.
Exactly. Did you just use it? Did you just use it
Oh
half
no.
raised?
No, the bike tires. You can kick bike tires too, just so you
Great, great, great. Thank you, thank you.
So
So,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I'm rabbiting on.
No, it's a really good point. So when we talk about this, we also talk about self-trust too. That's another huge layer of this. And before I get to that, I just want to throw it out here to kind of a bigger, more spiritual, wider topic. Then I was talking more on a personal level, working individual basis, and from a kind of from almost a ground where should I interact with this person or not? There's also the thing where, what if you're a parole officer? Can I trust this person to be in society around? I mean, that's a kind of a really extreme example. But when we talk about kind of more spiritual things, maybe it'll sound a little bit too new agey here, but it's almost something like trusting in, let's just frame it in Buddhist terminology, maybe trusting in that things don't happen randomly, that there's an intentionality, cause and effect, the laws of karma, that, that there is, it's not like a cosmic justice or something. It's just that there is laws in the universe, so to speak, that that have to be kind of obeyed and that work. And even though you can't really prove it with science or math, you can take it on faith and then road test it, field test it, and see if it works. So in that, there's a kind of faith that goes along with trust and faith. There's an old sutra. I'm almost free associating here. I probably am, but trust in mind, or faith mind. But so it's that I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Also, on a deep core level, if we can know that things are okay, meaning that in a way, I guess this comes along with fear too. If if we're okay, and especially with okay, things not being okay. So I'm talking here more about equanimity. I think, you know. So the notion that um, there's certain things that we're going to have to face in life: old age, sickness, death, um, self responsibility, and loss. So how do we? Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but in a sense, things are out of whack and there's dukkha, and at the same time, I, I to be okay with that and not be overwhelmed and distraught about the way of the world and how things are, and that if I'm fundamentally okay with things, then there can be a courage and a kind of self confidence that with the right trainings and teachings and support that we can get through this, and we've made it up to this point and we're doing the best we can up to this point. So in that sense, kind of trust that there's some kind of the order and goodness in the world too. So I'm stumbling in the dark when I'm trying to put words to what I'm saying here, but I think this notion of trust too, and how when some of that is lacking, it can kind of lead to sadness and kind of discouragement, and maybe some people even have distrust with the world. I mean, some people start with like everything sucks, everybody sucks all the time. Well, that would be a hell realm if it was like that. But sometimes it does feel like that. Other times everything seems to be going okay, you know. So I'm going on a little bit here, but I think these are some of the things I think of when I think about trust.
Okay, so just one thing. M. Reed, 1747, a regular listener, so lovely to hear from you,
Yes.
has said, "Hi,
Hey,
Josh. Hi, Wendy. We'll listen later today. Busy ATM." So thank you very much for
thank
keeping
you for
us
checking
up to,
in. Absolutely. Very cool.
yeah,
Appreciate
so
it.
nice. Okay, so here we go. Here's somebody who, um, I guess she's part of our little
Yeah.
regular thing, and how lovely
Yeah.
that is. So
Hmm.
to me, there's something about the trust in the she matters to us. There is something here, and I think you were describing there before about somebody who feels very disillusioned, and in French the word is désespoir, to have lost hope, despair, désespoir. So that's
Hmm.
that word. Um, I think I think at the foundation you have lost that there is a trust that others that you matter to other people. I think that is at the essence of that, what you're describing there. And trust from a meditation, and I think that one of the things about meditation is that as you meditate and you have time to reflect, and your mind goes from being this tight mind into a broader mind, you can see yourself in the context and you can go, oh, it's me who's being an idiot here, and I can see how actually more things fit together, and it's not that they were against me, which is, this has been my own journey, but that actually, and they don't trust me. It's actually that I'm behaving in a way that is, they're not sure how to interact with me. And maybe I'm not trustworthy, actually. So go back to your other one. So I think there's something about it when you meditate, and you meditate regularly, and you study the Dharma and the texts, that you start to see yourself more clearly, and not necessarily positively, but better, with more clarity. That allows you to recognize that, to take a broader picture and to become more trustworthy. Because I think in your case before, where you're saying, is this person trustworthy? Are they going to trick me? Whatever, sincerity. That question actually says that that person's worldview is quite small and tight and it's about them. Whereas I think somebody who you trust instantly is somebody who you have a sense that they have a larger view of their world. There's some experience, energetic experience you're getting from that. That's what I think.
Oh, that's brilliantly put, Wendy. Yes, it's, 'cause we can, I think a lot of people that can tune in fairly easy. That's a good gauge if they're mostly self-concerned, right? That's a very narrow, what's in it for me? What can I get out of this all the time? Well, then that's compared to someone that has a more broader view. And this is where ethical things come. And I will mention though that I would disagree a little bit about when you say, "Oh, it's me that's being idiot." I get the notion, but sorry to reframe, and maybe this is too cliche to reframe it this way, but I would just say, wisdom is lacking in that moment. And as far you touched on behavior. Now, this is a really important point. When we notice behavior sometimes in others, I think I can't. So if I can't put it in a box and I don't understand it, then I tend to I don't know what to do with this, right? So then it turns to, I guess it's not get maybe on not having the trust there, but it's not so much as, okay, this person is a fundamentally untrustworthy individual. It's just that I don't know what to do with this behavior. I haven't seen this flavor. There's something about it that might raise a flag, and I don't know what to do with it. So it's not so much that I don't trust it. It's just that my wisdom is not there enough to know what to do with it, how to view it, and how to respond to. You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, and I think this is it's pros and cons for conformity and behaving in certain ways. So on the upside, everybody kind of recognizes and they know what to do with it. On the downside, we can have very kind of gray hive mind societal structures. We can have very bland cultures, I think. We can have automatons and people that are very easily controlled. Not that it always goes hand in hand with that, but these are some of the things that I'd like to point out around that the point you made. Yeah. And societal cohesion. So I think at least in America, these people that still use the paper money, it says, "In God we trust," right? So, but it is a type of trust, because at the end of the day, all those are pictures of dead presidents on a piece of paper, but we all kind of have a social agreement that we're going to use those pieces of paper and be able to use things with them. So we trust that the other person will honor that obligation. It seems ridiculous to frame it that way because it's just so almost automatic in society, right? But at the end of the day, that's really what it is. If that trust that the other person isn't going to honor that and use that, or it's going to be backed by something else or enforced by something else, then yeah. And yeah, if people didn't trust each other, it would be like, I think, caveman times, where it would just be kind of every interaction, do I have to kill this person, or am I going to assault them, or whatever. I don't want to go any further in that. So there's just, yeah, and I think we take this for granted sometimes, how kind of civilized in some senses, um, the people we to meet with, at least on that such a fundamental level, where we don't have to vet somebody on that level every time, because it's just absolute lawlessness, like old westerns in America or something, where there's just shootouts every day, or you know
Yeah. So that line, "In God we trust," I believe that only came in the 50s or the 60s. It's very, very recent. It wasn't there until I'm pretty sure it was somebody post-war and who was clearly very devout and a president and wanted it in. And it was a president that was there, I think, for 4 terms, which is after that they decided, okay, we've got to make this so nobody can run for more than 2. So it was that one. I can't remember. I have a feeling it was that one.
Yes, and I know I know the president you're talking about. I'm blanking on the name now, and this is sad. You know, here Americans should know more American history than Australian, but it's not a competition. And yeah, so that's it is a really interesting thing to have that, and it people wonder about that quite a bit, these things, and I think we'd have to go into some philosophy to get more into that. So. Mhm.
So, now you've lived in a couple of countries now, in a few different countries, and you've been in Denmark quite a lot. You're back in the US now. And so when you meet somebody you don't know and they're in from a different culture, it doesn't feel like they fit or something. Maybe you give a bit more leeway because it doesn't, you go, oh, they don't come from here, so I can give them a bit more leeway. So the word outlandish actually comes from outland, so Auslander, which is a foreigner. So I think there is something about, is this person trustworthy? And I think racism, segregation is this idea that comes from contamination. So we had to medically segregate black people from white people because they were more diseased. That's where that whole thing came from. So even though you would give your babies to them and you would have wet nurses, and like the whole logic of it was completely ludicrous. So you can see how this is completely numb, like stupid idea. Like the whole concept is absolutely daft. But you've lived now in different countries. And so tell me about monasteries in different cultures and different Buddhist groups and Denmark, and just how have you experienced trust across different cultures?
Uh, It's a good question. It's just, I would say I'm not really qualified to answer this on a broader scope because it is kind of a narrow thing, And I think it seems that xenophobia comes in here too, instead of racism, because what I feel. And maybe I could be wrong, and maybe this is just my own view, that a lot of times it's not so much racist as xenophobia, meaning that this is something new. I don't know how to behave or respond in this situation. I have no reference point. This is not how I see myself and people I know. And I don't know what's going on here. And I don't know what to do and what my place is in this. I think that plays a huge role too. Maybe it's just me who's more mentally oriented that sees that. But what you say about giving like the benefit of the doubt and being open, and I think that obviously goes both ways. And this is kind of the golden rule, right? Because that's how I would want other people to treat me too. So there needs to be almost this kind of not an unnatural, but out of the ordinary openness in a sense. For me, I think now some people do the opposite where they kind of close down and protect themselves. But for me, I feel that in the opposite, like I have to open myself up even more than I normally would, and it's not really showing. Oh God, this goes into so much selfing, right? So, but I think
Yeah, but
when
selfing's great. Like, I'm
it
always
is,
so,
yeah,
because I
for
think if you
sure,
don't talk
sure.
about your own
Well,
experience,
that's
I
right,
think it's
exactly.
theoretical, and then I think it turns into kind of like,
Oh, that's
nice
of
in
course.
theory, but where is the practice?
Exactly. No,
It's
absolutely.
you've got to
So,
kind of work with your own practice. That's why it's your experience which is central. Sorry about cross talking, but yeah.
no, it's great. It's a really good point. That's right. And so this is kind of our relative life. And so I went from one point in my life to being like socially awkward and socially anxious to now the other extreme where sometimes I'm so comfortable in certain situations, people are suspicious because they're like, why is this guy so open and comfortable? He should have a little bit of nervousness and anxiety. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I wondered about that myself. It's just because I really think, look at I don't have much of a fear level and courage level, but then I also kind of trust in instincts and intuition. Like if I really sense someone is not a good fit for me or maybe even might be dangerous, then I address it right away. I don't shy away from it. And then I will make distance usually most of the time, right away. So trusting kind of our intuition and BS detector and gauge that and just people that I'm interested in. And that so this is where friendliness is just the meta, like the translation, unstoppable friendliness. So people, it seems to repel people that don't have our best interest in mind in a way. You know what I mean? It kind of I think it brings out something in the other person as well. If they can sense that kind of I have the best interest at mind, or at least friendly and mean no harm whatsoever, it does make it a lot easier compared to in the past when I wasn't keeping, precepts. And, I think people kind of either unconsciously or in their body can sense whether somebody's, kind of safe or not, or can be safe around. So as far as like on social levels, though, I think one of the things that helps is being generally interested in the culture and the person, at least initially. I think everybody almost, as long as I have enough resources and time, everybody like 10 minutes of our attention. And, to be, I think it's one of my skill sets or strong suits is I can usually find something that I'm interested in, with someone together, at least for like 10 minutes. So I think the more I can try to connect with someone, the better. And as far as now the greater cultures go, I'm just fascinated. You should hear Wendy and I off screen really talk raw and unfiltered about some things in England, and I'm grateful because yeah, Wendy's been there. She knows some of the things. So for all the good, bad, otherwise, and just quirkiness and all the colorfulness of I think English culture, it's just it's a lot of it's great, a lot of it's frustrating. But it definitely is a good practice for me, and I feel it's a fairly decent spot for the Dhamma. Otherwise, I wouldn't keep going back like I have today. So England, and then coming from like a new country like in America, where it's basically an experiment here. It's lots of still weird, crazy stuff going on, which is fascinating in its own right sometimes. But then you go to the old world like Europe, where things are very kind of established, and this is how we do things here, this is how it's done, this is how we are, this is how they are. You kind of know where you stand a little bit easier than in America, where people are kind of jockeying to fit in or make sense of a lot of things, and the whole world is looking at them or looking at the states to kind of figure out what the heck is this, what's going on here with this, and so it's kind of a spectacle in the states sometimes. I mean, that's everywhere. So I don't know. I'm throwing a lot of things at the wall here. Maybe you can help focus me a little bit more. And then I will ask you kind of the same things too, because you've been way more places than I have and lived more places than I have. So I'm fascinated in hearing your response to this too.
So just going back to the question, which is trust and meditation
Yeah.
Q&A, which is how do we understand ourselves in different contexts? How do we understand ourselves according to our identity of nationality? Which is, I'm in the US now, and and I've been in the UK, and all this is what you're saying. And trusting yourself, and that when you're in a new context, actually, can you trust yourself? Because it makes you aware that the structures around you that create you, whoever you is, and we know it's not fixed, we become aware of how much you, I, is in response to the relationship with the culture and other people and expected behaviors. So, um, the so when you're in another country, at some level you can really let go and you go, oh, I don't care. I'm so not part of that system, because those things. But it can also become, I found living in England actually extremely lonely, because the things that made me me, which is being outgoing and chatty and friendly and emotional and all those things, are contrary to the cultural landscape of what will people think, which is a sort of this constant social barrier. And it's like, well, you could ask them what they think and they won't tell you, but if you want to know what they think, just ask them, which is contrary to the whole English thing where you're supposed to somehow get it by osmosis. This is my experience. It's all done by things. So in terms of trust, and then it's like, and sometimes you've been in, I don't know if you've had this experience, I've been in a relationship where I was kind of nuts. It's like I wasn't me, and people would say to me, at that time you just weren't you. Or after I in my separation and divorce from a previous relationship, my marriage, I wasn't you where you who were you? I couldn't. And I I think we forge these kind of relationships with who I am in our sort of in that context. And in fact, when you undergo therapy, you're changing the nature and the relationality, the way that you relate. And as you say, people can sense that. People sense whether you're safe or unsafe because you're actually working with that and owning your own pain. And when you own your own pain and your own selfishness, it doesn't fritter out onto the other person, because the other person, you sort of feel like that person's got you in check, they're in check kind of thing. And so you can trust them in that way. So just in terms of, yeah, so self, no self, and how that's embodied within the culture is really clear about what is the correct protocol and who am I. And some people find that tremendously liberating. A lot of people come to Australia and go, it's like so free in comparison to England. But others come and they go, it's going to be like this and this and this and this. And actually they hate it, and they go, it was awful, I hated Australia. So I'm no, like, there's plenty of flaws with Australia. I've lived abroad, I've lived here, and I can tell you, I know Australia's got a ton of problem, and I'm in Queensland and there's a ton of problem, and I've lived in Sydney and there's a ton of problem. Like, I know, I'm not sitting starry-eyed about all the problems. It just works for me. That's all it means. So I think, wherever we go, there we are. And yeah, so that,
It's
just going back to trust. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going either,
No,
but
no, no. So much of the path is paradox, and I experience that as well. On one hand, it's so completely liberating. Say, I can just use this as an excuse. Oh, I'm just a dumb American foreigner. And so, yeah, oh, okay, everybody understands that, right? So, yeah, in a way, it's liberating and free. But then it gets to be like, okay, when you get into certain social interactions, and okay, how do I play this? How do I behave? Where's my place here? How do I fit in? So this, yeah. So in some sense, in America, that helped me a lot to know that what other people think about me is none of my business. But it don't. I shouldn't say it's a national pastime in England, because I've come up with a lot of these. But yeah, it's something about that. Now, what has really put things in perspective, and I think the emotional charge of this has been diffused a lot for me, because I do spend a lot of times in monasteries. So it is kind of like a universality, that of course there's different flavors of the Dhamma wherever you move it around the globe, right? But at the core, there seems to be a common thread that most people, if they're not on the same page, they're at least interested in that page. And so that kind of gives a common ground that I think it goes deeper and broader and is brighter than the kind of worldly overlays and winds that blow through this. So that I don't know if I could do it without that, right? It would be completely different. And yeah, I don't know if I would have such a huge supporting ground for that. And then when we talk, the things that Wendy mentioned too, it's meditation is a great container to see all these things happening in our relationship to ourselves, and the things that are unfolding in ourselves, and how we're holding them, what we're picking up, what we can put down. This notion of trust, I think, goes hand in hand with faith. On the path, right? Faith and confidence too, self-trust, trust in the Buddha and his teachings, in the Dhamma. So, and then the trust when we have our teacher, kind of faith and trust, and confidence goes along with this, self-confidence, and in our ability to do the practice. So yeah, these are really, I think, fundamental when we talk about the five faculties, and wisdom balances that out. If we get, too imbalanced in any of these, then they kind of everything gets out of whack. But the kind of wisdom will balance that. You can check it with wisdom, and then we have energy and concentration and mindfulness that kind of ties the whole thing together and monitors the whole thing. So yeah, these are these this trust, this confidence, this faith is I think paramount and very important when we go to kind of gauge gauge meditation practice, but also keep it balanced and progressing. So in a healthy way, and by that also I mean not too much clinging and comparing and striving unhelpfully too. So
Yeah, there is something. So a couple of things with the word wisdom. I'm always a bit tricky about the way that people use it because often that means it's sort of to do with how much knowledge you've acquired and you have a presence. But what we're talking about here is the capacity to see that everything is interdependent. That's all that wisdom means in this context. That's the way I always interpret emptiness and interdependence. Yeah.
I would also say though too, it's kind of the lived experience from real life choices and experience of things that lead towards away from suffering instead of towards suffering too. You know,
Ah,
so
I never.
this
Yeah.
you never thought of that. So it's like actually,
Yeah.
it's kind of yeah. We have information, we have knowledge, but then wisdom, I feel, is like it draws on that, but it's not theoretical, it's embodied, I think, knowing in action, and something that can relieve suffering just by knowing it kind of in our own experience and from our heart. That's one way I look also at it as well.
Now I'm gonna have to look this up because I don't trust you, you see,
Yeah.
to have that definition.
And
So
then
I
gnosis is another thing too. So maybe I'm talking more of gnosis than wisdom, but yes, yeah, I would love a textbook example of it's a
uh,
good point.
all
Why not,
all right, all right. So give me a second. I use, a common, big, popular AI thing to ask all these
I
questions. So
see.
give I know it's very unethical on multiple
No,
levels,
no, no.
but
It's
I find it, yeah, really handy. So just give me a second. You talk, Josh,
sure.
while I
Yes, and
put it
I didn't
into the chat.
I didn't
Okay.
even read the official introduction here, but I'll spare it this time, see if we can get through without it. But I did list some things here like confidence, courage, and we've talked about that. Openness, honesty, we've touched on that. Safety, and we touched on that too, about how that's in trust. And I mentioned intuition. Friendship, we talked about loving kindness and unstoppable friendliness. Ethics, Wendy just touched on that. And societal functionality. And we've also touched on kind of their opposites and the whole spectrum of these two. So, yeah, we did cover quite a bit of what I wanted to cover. So I'm glad for that. So, what is the definition for
Okay. So,
wisdom?
all right. So in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, it's prajna. Or in Pali, it's panya. So it's nothing to do
Yes.
with being clever. So it's not to do with, I think, what you were describing. What it says is wisdom is the direct seeing of things as they truly are. Buddhist wisdom is the clear, non-conceptual understanding of impermanence, anicca, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. It means perceiving that all conditioned phenomena are constantly changing, inherently unreliable, and lack any independent, enduring essence. In other words, wisdom is seeing through the illusion of permanence, ownership, and separateness. Nothing to do with your embodied experience of, you know, this is the thing and behaving. So that's
I
that.
was thinking about application of wisdom. So, yes,
Okay.
please go ahead.
All
Yes.
right. Okay. So wisdom is experiential, not intellectual. You can study the scriptures for decades and not have wisdom. You can be illiterate and yet through meditation and ethical living awaken deep insight. Buddhist wisdom arises when the mind is calm, ethical, and clear enough to see reality directly without distortion from craving, aversion, or ignorance. Wisdom works together with compassion. Panya and karuna, compassion, are two wings of the same bird. Wisdom without compassion becomes cold and aloof. Compassion without wisdom becomes sentimental or exhausting. Together, they lead to liberation, nibbana or nirvana. So, wisdom cuts through ignorance, which is avidya. Ignorance is the root cause of suffering, the mistaken belief that I exist as a separate, lasting entity who can possess or control reality. Wisdom uproots this delusion. When the mind sees clearly that there is no solid self here, the clinging that causes suffering naturally ceases. Three levels of Buddhist wisdom. The Buddhist texts often describe Panya developing in three progressive states. Suttamaya Panya, wisdom born of hearing or studying, learning the Dharma. Chintamaya Panya, wisdom born of reflection, so reasoning and contemplation. And Bhavanamaya Panya, wisdom born of meditation, direct insight through experience. Only the third is considered true liberating wisdom. In short, Buddhist wisdom is the direct experiential realization of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non self, the clear seeing that dissolves ignorance and ends suffering.
Beautiful. Direct experiential. So I got that right. But yes, the three characteristics of dukkha, anicca, anatta. And yes, it is the direct antidote to ignorance or delusion in the sense of the three unwholesome roots, right? And really the other unwholesome roots can't be there without ignorance or delusion either, because when there's wisdom, then it kind of cuts off the chance for greed and ill will to be there. So yeah, it's kind of hard to just have pure ill will without also ignorance too, right? And same way with greed. So yeah, it is kind of at the root, the core, and that's what wisdom can address. And the big question for me now is how in depth, granular, comprehensive, full, and complete does our wisdom have to be in order to gain full realization, enlightenment? Well, we can see in our own experience that really any amount of wisdom is a huge relief to our suffering, and so yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I was just sort of thinking as you were saying, I was thinking about a conversation that I had with my husband yesterday after meditation. And I was recounting a conversation that I had had with somebody in the computer shop because I could no longer get my computer guy to come and fix, and I was asking for somebody else. And and I realized that I had been a bit, what's the word, blamey, or I can't remember the correct word that I used, but I was, and there are many reasons for that, but I was a bit superior and a bit pushy, and not really, and a bit blamey. And I said to my husband, well, I see that I do that with you as well. And I actually don't like that about myself. And he went, yes. So I think that trust comes from recognizing that you too are as fallible as anybody else. And I think that is actually a core feature of trust, that something about we're all in this together. It's not I'm separate from. Something there.
And it's totally, and it gets muddied sometimes because what you're talking about, from what I understand a lot of times, and I at least I see it in myself, that there's also a seed there of I care about this and I want it to be very good. It's just how we go about it and how we do it that is the really is I often neglect that part because I want to kind of jump ahead to saying, okay, I want this to be good. I want you to be good with it. And I want us all to be competent and on our game and, doing things skillful and well. Okay. I kind of jump to the end goal there. and I forget how I go about getting there.
Mm.
So that's where the rub is. I'm kind of more goal oriented and principle oriented, and then kind of forget the heart
Mm.
sometimes, and if that's so y- yeah, we all have something. So what do we do? What do we do about that? So we can also acknowledge the more skillful things in that approach, but also be honest, like Wendy was saying, okay, that's probably, if I was on the other end, if I was in their shoes, how would I like it if they were, you know, going about it that way, So yeah, so I think it's a mix, and a lot of times it's not so simple and straightforward, and there's a lot of mixed comma, or light and dark, skillful, unskillful, and I think yeah. So we can assess even a bigger picture and give ourselves some slack as well, but also keep our feet to the fire when they need to be to the fire, and hold ourselves to skillful action. And part of that is being kind to ourselves too, and forgiving to ourselves as well, I think. Yeah.
Well, to me, it's not about being forgiving to myself. It's about there's something about seeing that I am human in the same way my husband's human, and I too am capable of the same mistakes as everybody else. So there's some capacity to witness myself in the ways that I witness others as within a context. And I was just thinking about what you were saying about the goal orientation. And just before we jumped online, I was reading an article in The Conversation, which I really like. I really like that website. And I know I'm not supposed to be promoting, but I'm promoting because I think it's fantastic. And I have no affiliation, la la la. But, and it was about actually the role of um, the Protestant work ethic and Weber's kind of ideas of the Protestant work ethic and how that has been co opted into capitalism. That my worthiness is only according to my productivity and efficiency. And how that has been, you can sort of hear that in the capitalist framework, and how it becomes a hollow experience because we are not looking at the relationship part of it. We are only focused on what's the outcome, and then we become hollow and lonely inside when we are only focused on the outcome, because we forget that we too are in this relationship together, and and
And
and we lose that trust actually. Yeah, go.
it's a really good point, and it further distorts wise effort too, because then we look at things like this, like, well, why do I want to, be like that and waste all my time and energy for something that means nothing and that is pointless? And then the danger is then to become complacent and to not then use wise action and wise effort when it's needed, and how it should actually be applied for our welfare and happiness and benefit. So I just wanted to, why we're riffing on, the kind of the misuse of that, or the misappropriation of that, or whatever. So yeah, I really agree with that. And we can, again, a great way to, I know we're been focused more outwardly, well, but yes and no, interrelationally. So this is how we're relating internally with our own internal voice, how we're kind of seeing ourselves and relating to ourselves, and even the meditation object itself, and then when we lose, if we're doing a more object oriented meditation, if we lose that, how do we relate to ourselves? Do we beat ourselves up? How do we come back to the object? How do we continue the meditation? How do we use this to support our practice and strengthen it in a good way, and instead of the ways that we were talking about there? So yeah.
Yeah. So getting back to meditation and trust, there is something about how can you trust yourself, um, or developing a sense of trust in yourself through meditation.
Oh,
How do
that's a
you
good one. Really good.
All right, you go, you go, Josh.
Well, another thing I wanted to talk about with confidence is we look at before I turn it back in. I've mentioned this several times before. I was confusing um, being egotistical with self confidence. Not the same thing, obviously. The examples I had around me for being self confident, they were so super egotistical, and I thought, I no wonder I don't have any confidence. I don't want to be like them, but it's not the same thing. So what it can do is you can build trust internally by by looking at your practice too and saying, okay, I can do this. There's benefits to it that, for one thing, first it can let my guard down completely. I'm in a safe space. It's just me. I don't have to perform. I don't have to please anybody. I don't have to live up or accomplish anything. I can just sit here and be a human being, you know? And so allowing things to clear out, and then that, yeah, I don't even have to prove myself, do anything special at all. And so, yeah, I think when that falls away, there's more of a natural sense that, you know, I'm here. I'm doing the best I can. I've made it to this point so far. So I've survived everything up to this point. So there's got to be something about that. And reflecting on those we admire, the goodness that we've shown others, and the goodness we've shown ourselves too. There's a kind of a self-confidence that comes in that there is goodness in the world, and that there's a benefit from it for myself and others. It's kind of inspiring to yeah, to act on. I guess another question to ask here, why wouldn't I trust myself, you know? Where is we can look at it more cataphatic, if that's the right term here. It's kind of a religious term of apophatic and cataphatic. This is more of a Christian, where you say what God is or what God isn't, meaning like what is in the way of, why wouldn't there be trust here, you know? Also, what am I trusting in my own experience, and what don't I trust? One more theoretical, what would it be like if I couldn't trust like my view of reality, and how maddening that would be, you know? Um, and what kind of abilities am I not trusting, you know, that I do have? And can I be okay with where I fall short too? And where can I strengthen weaknesses? And where can I celebrate strengths too? I don't know. I threw a lot out there. Hopefully, that wasn't too watered down, convoluted, new age stuff. Some of it.
Well, what you're describing there, if I've got this, is how do we trust ourselves? And and the answer in that one is, well, why don't we? And the reason we don't is because sometimes we're idiots. And I know you're a bit like, you want to turn it into another phrase, but I think sometimes it's good to say, well, I'm a numpty. I didn't behave as my best self. There's no two ways
Yeah,
about
behave.
it. But
It's
look,
the behavior.
I,
It's the behavior.
I,
We've done things that aren't good. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And we're all like unskillful left, right, and center. And I think it's okay to say, oh man, I was a bit daft there.
yeah.
And
Own it.
and
Yeah,
yeah, totally own it. And I think there's something nice about being relaxed about that. So when I say I'm an idiot, I'm not just kind of giving myself a whole
sure,
lot of
sure,
grief. It's not a sort of a, oh, flagellation, self-flagellation. I'm not
sure.
doing that at all. It's all just like, oh wow, okay. It's actually got sincerity
Yeah,
in its core.
yeah,
And I think sometimes when we do this, switching over into a kind of a dharma language, if
yeah.
it
It's a good
doesn't
point.
feel embodied and owned, it
Sure.
just is fake, and we can't
Lipstick on a
trust that.
pig. Lipstick on a
Exact
pig.
totally,
Yeah, sure.
totally
Yeah,
there, totally
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So I think that's that. Hey Josh, I've just seen the clock.
Yeah.
It's 1 minute before the hour. All right. So, what do you want to say before we wrap up? I just left it there because I'm like, oh, look at that. The time's
Yeah,
flown.
time gets away from us sometimes. So, yeah, I think we've covered plenty of ground on this. I'm very satisfied with trusting that we've done an okay job here. and that, yeah, that our trust will continue to grow, and that we'll find value in our kind of faith and trust as well. And I think where we even started with this was that we both recognized that this was a big thing going on in society right now, maybe a lack of trust. And we didn't even touch on that, but I don't even know if it needs touching on, because it seems fairly apparent, I guess. But yeah, why don't you wrap this one up, Wendy, then?
Well, I think there is a sense that no one is keeping an eye out for my welfare. I don't matter because I have become a number, in the capitalist, is going through that Weberish
Yeah,
thing. I am just a dollar value. I am a data point. There is some truth to that, and my employment and
sure.
my housing conditions have deteriorated in this post since, in the last 20, 30, 40 years. That is, I think, true. So I think there is, as a result, less trust because actually, as an ex-boyfriend said, he said, "Well, you don't trust me." And I was telling this to a friend, and he said, "Well, yeah, he wasn't trustworthy." So I think it's not surprising, that there isn't trust. It's actually that governments have not been behaved in ways that were trustworthy. And and so, yeah, of course. I'll end it there on that fun note. And only my favorite saying is slogan. It's a Tibetan slogan. It says, "Of the two witnesses, trust the principal one." And that means only you know when you're kidding yourself, and only you know what is the right course of action. No one can do it for you. So on that one, that to me sums up trust 100%.
Beautifully put. And I will just leave it there and encourage us all to trust ourselves deeper and deeper, and for good reasons too. All right. Bye,
Have a
everybody.
good month. Bye.
Likewise.